Admiral Vextar stood in front of the massive screen on his warship's bridge. The blue planet spinning slowly before him looked small and weak. His intelligence officer, Quindal, walked up beside him, looking nervous and worried. "Sir, we have new information about this species. They call themselves humans," Quindal said quietly. "Our spy ships tell us they have built 7 new colonies past their homeworld." Vextar made a sound like laughing. His alien face showed no respect for these new creatures. Just another weak species trying to grow bigger than they should. Why should the mighty Galactic Dominion care about such small beings? Quindal's hands shook a little as he held his data pad. "Sir, there is something strange in our old computer files. Very old files from the precursor race that died out long ago. There is one small note about creatures that sound just like these humans." The Admiral turned to look at his officer. "What does this old note say?" "It only says this: do not fight them. Run away immediately." Quindal's voice got even quieter as he spoke the ancient warning. Admiral Vextar's mouthparts made clicking sounds as he laughed harder. "Those are just old stories from a race too scared to fight anyone. The precursors were cowards who ran from everything. That is why they are all dead now, and we rule the galaxy." But Quindal felt something cold in his stomach. The precursors had been the most powerful race in galactic history. They had technology that even the Dominion could not understand. If they were afraid of something, maybe there was a good reason. Far away on the human colony world called New Terra, Commander Lee Hansol sat in his command center, watching the warning lights flash red on his screens. The long-range sensors had picked up the alien fleet while they were still days away. Hansol had been expecting this moment for a very long time. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel, turning on emergency systems that had been waiting silent for years. Every human colony had these same systems. Every human world had been preparing for this day since they first learned that aliens existed in the galaxy. "Send the signal to all civilian ships," Hansol said to his team. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard like steel. "Tell them Operation Mousetrap starts now." Captain Park Ji-woo, Hansol's second in command, felt his heart beat faster. They had practiced this plan hundreds of times, but now it was real. "Sir, should we call Earth and tell them the aliens are here?" Hansol smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who sees his prey walking into a trap. "Earth Command already knows, Ji-woo. They knew this would happen before we did. Every human world in space has been watching and waiting." Park Ji-woo looked at the screen showing the alien fleet getting closer. 20 years of preparation. Do you think it will be enough?" "The aliens think they are hunting us," Hansol said, as he watched more red lights appear on his screens. "They think we are just another weak species that will give up without a fight. They have conquered so many worlds that they believe no one can stop them." Hansol stood up and walked to the big window that showed the stars. Somewhere out there, the alien fleet was coming to destroy everything the humans had built, but the aliens did not know what humans were really like when someone tried to hurt their families. "They are used to fighting species that have never seen war before," Hansol continued. "Species that build pretty cities and make art and music. Species that surrender when the first shot is fired." Park Ji-woo joined his commander at the window. "But humans are different." "Yes, we are very different. We come from a world where everything tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to fight before we learned to build. We learned to hunt before we learned to farm. And most importantly, we learned that the best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy never sees you coming." On Hansol's desk, a small picture showed his wife and daughter back on Earth. They were safe there, protected by the strongest military force humanity had ever built. But every human in the colonies knew they might die to keep Earth safe. They had all volunteered for this job, knowing the risks. The alien fleet was still 3 days away, but Hansol could already see how this would end. The Galactic Dominion had never fought humans before. They had no idea what they were walking into. Admiral Vextar thought he was bringing his fleet to conquer another weak species. Instead, he was bringing his fleet to learn why an ancient and powerful race had written just 4 words about humanity: "Do not engage them." The warning had been waiting in those old files for thousands of years. Soon Admiral Vextar would understand why the precursors had been so afraid. Soon he would learn what happened when predators tried to hunt the ultimate predator. The humans were ready. They had been ready for 20 years. The space around knew. Terror suddenly filled with massive alien warships as they dropped out of hyperspace. The Dominion fleet looked like a wall of metal and death stretching across the starfield. Their biggest ships were so huge they blocked out the light from New Terra's twin moons, casting dark shadows across the colony world below. Admiral Vextar stood on his command bridge feeling very pleased with himself. His fleet had 200 warships, including 12 of the most powerful dreadnought battleships in the galaxy. Each one of those giant ships could destroy an entire planet by itself. He had used fleets like this to conquer hundreds of worlds, and today would be no different. The Admiral pressed a button to open communications with the human colony. His voice boomed across space, full of arrogance and power. "Weak creatures who call yourselves humans, listen carefully. You will give up your colony right now and bow down to Dominion rule. You have exactly 1 hour to surrender completely, or we will destroy everything you have built." This was how it always went. Vextar would arrive with his massive fleet, demand surrender, and the terrified aliens would immediately give up. Most species started begging for mercy before he even finished talking. Some would cry and plead for their lives. Others would try to offer him treasure or technology in exchange for their freedom. But they all surrendered in the end. But today was different. The response that came back from the human colony was not what Admiral Vextar expected at all. Colonial Administrator Kim Sora's voice came through the communication system. She sounded completely calm, as if she was discussing the weather instead of facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Alien fleet, you have 72 hours to leave this star system completely. This is the only warning you will receive." The bridge of Vextar's flagship went completely silent. Every alien officer stared at each other in shock and confusion. In the Dominion's long history of conquering worlds, no species had ever given them a warning. No primitive race had ever told the mighty Galactic Dominion to leave. Did that human just threaten us?" asked Commander Zalthek, Vextar's second-in-command. "Impossible," whispered another officer. "In 847 conquests, no species has ever done this." Admiral Vextar felt his face burn with anger and embarrassment. How dare these tiny, weak humans speak to him this way? He had destroyed entire civilizations for much smaller insults than this. "All ships begin bombardment patterns now," Vextar shouted. "Teach these arrogant creatures what happens when they disrespect the Dominion." The massive alien warships began to move into attack formation, their weapon systems charging up with deadly energy. But as they prepared to fire, something very strange happened. The human colony ships suddenly scattered in all directions with perfect coordination. It was like watching a school of fish move away from a predator, but much more organized and precise. Ships that had looked like simple civilian transports just moments before suddenly revealed themselves to be something very different. Heavy armor plating slid out of hidden compartments. Military-grade energy shields flickered to life around each ship. Advanced sensor arrays deployed from what had appeared to be cargo bays. In seconds, the entire human fleet had transformed from innocent-looking colony ships into something that looked much more dangerous. But the strangest part was that the humans did not fire back. Even as the Dominion ships began their attack, the human vessels just kept moving and dodging. They were not trying to fight. They were doing something else entirely. Captain Park Jiwoo sat in his command chair inside a hidden military base built into one of the larger asteroids in the system. His screens were filled with data streaming in from every human ship in the fleet. "Sir, we are getting perfect scans of every alien ship type. All weapon signatures are being recorded. Their tactical movement patterns are being analyzed and stored." Commander Lee Hansol watched the battle from his secret command center and smiled. The aliens thought they were attacking a helpless colony, but they were actually giving the humans exactly what they wanted: a complete intelligence report on Dominion military capabilities. "Excellent work, Jiwoo. Make sure all this information gets transmitted back to Earth Command immediately. Our people need to see everything these aliens can do." The human ships continued their careful dance around the alien fleet. Every time a Dominion warship fired its weapons, human sensors recorded the energy output, the weapon type, and the tactical doctrines being used. When alien ships moved into new formations, Human computers analyzed their coordination methods and communication systems. The Dominion fleet was powerful, but they were fighting the way they always fought. They used the same attack patterns they had used to conquer hundreds of worlds. They had never needed to change their tactics, because no enemy had ever survived long enough to study them. But humans were different. Humans had learned long ago. That information was more valuable than weapons. While the alien fleet was trying to destroy the colony, the human fleet was stealing every secret the Dominion had. Admiral Vexitar watched his weapons fire at the dodging human ships and grew more frustrated by the minute. Why won't they stand and fight like every other species? Why do they keep running around like insects? He did not understand that the humans were not running away in fear. They were hunting. They were learning everything they needed to know to destroy the Dominion fleet completely. On Earth, military commanders watched the data streaming in from New Terra and began making their own preparations. Soon, Admiral Vexitar would learn that he had made the biggest mistake in Dominion history. He had given humans time to study their enemy. Admiral Vexitar's patience finally ran out completely. The human ships had been dodging his attacks for hours, and his pride could not take any more embarrassment. He slammed his fist down on the command console and shouted orders to his entire fleet. All ships, maximum firepower. I want every weapon system firing at once. Crush these insects completely. His voice echoed through the communication channels to all 200 Dominion warships. The Admiral was sure that raw, overwhelming force would end this quickly. No species in galactic history had ever survived when the Dominion used full military power. His fleet had enough weapons to destroy entire solar systems. These humans would learn to fear the Dominion, just like everyone else. But Admiral Vexitar had no idea what he was really facing. The humans had not been running around randomly for the past few hours. They had been preparing for this exact moment for much longer than he could possibly imagine. Hidden in the asteroid fields around New Terra, Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-sik sat in his fighter cockpit watching the alien fleet move into their full attack formation. He had been waiting in complete silence for 6 hours, his ship powered down and invisible to enemy sensors. Around him, 40 other human fighter pilots waited in the same way. Min-sik had studied every piece of information about Dominion tactics that human intelligence had gathered over the past 8 months. Long-range spy probes had been watching Dominion fleets for almost a year, recording how they fought, how they moved, and most importantly, how they made mistakes. All pilots, this is Hunter Leader, Min-sik spoke quietly into his communication system. The prey has finally shown us their full strength. Now we show them what real predators can do. The human fighters powered up their engines and weapons systems, but instead of charging straight at the enemy like most species would do, they moved, with the careful precision of wolves surrounding a herd of prey animals. Remember what we learned in training, Min-sik continued. We are not just defending our colony, we are hunting the hunters. Every Dominion ship that dies today makes the galaxy a safer place for every other species. The human fighters struck, like lightning from multiple directions at once. They did not attack the strongest ships first, like most military forces would do. Instead, they targeted the specific ships that controlled communications and coordination for the entire Dominion fleet. Min-sik's fighter dove toward a Dominion command cruiser, his weapon systems locked onto the exact location where intelligence reports said the ship's main communication array would be located. His first shots were perfectly aimed, destroying the alien ship's ability to talk to the rest of the fleet. All around the battlefield, other human pilots were doing the same thing. They had studied Dominion ship designs for months and knew exactly where to hit each type of vessel to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. The Dominion's superior numbers suddenly became a problem instead of an advantage. With their communications cut off, the alien ships could not coordinate their attacks properly. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds found themselves being outmaneuvered by human vessels that were half their size. On the Dominion flagship, Intelligence Officer Quindal ran up to Admiral Vexitar with panic in his eyes. Sir, something is very wrong here. The humans are not fighting the way new species usually fight. They know exactly how our ships work. They know exactly where our weak points are. Admiral Vexitar watched another one of his heavy cruisers explode, under precise human weapons fire. The humans had hit the ship's reactor control system with surgical accuracy, causing a chain reaction that destroyed the entire vessel in seconds. "This is impossible," Vextar said, his voice much quieter now. "No primitive species learns our tactics this quickly. It takes years of fighting us before enemies even begin to understand how our military works." Quindal looked at his datapad with growing fear. "Sir, I have been analyzing their attack patterns. The humans are not learning our tactics during this battle. They already knew our tactics before the battle started. They have been studying us for a very long time." The Admiral stared at the tactical display showing his fleet taking heavy damage. Red warning lights flashed as ship after ship reported critical systems failures. The humans were not just fighting back, they were dismantling his fleet piece by piece with scientific precision. "How long have they been watching us?" Vextar asked. "Based on their knowledge of our ship designs and tactical doctrines, I estimate they have been conducting intelligence operations against us for at least 8 to 10 months, possibly longer." But the worst news was still coming. Communications. Officers across the bridge began receiving messages from other Dominion fleets located in completely different star systems. "Admiral, we are getting emergency signals from the 5th Fleet near the Rigel system. They report human forces attacking them as well. The 7th Fleet at Proxima Station is also under attack by human ships. Sir, the 2nd Fleet guarding the Centauri trade routes is requesting immediate assistance. They say human forces appeared out of nowhere and began systematic attacks on their command vessels." Admiral Vextar felt his blood turn cold. The humans were not just defending one colony. They were attacking Dominion forces across 3 different star systems at the same time. This was not a desperate defensive action by a primitive species. This was a coordinated military campaign by an enemy that had been planning this war for a very long time. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-sik destroyed another Dominion communications ship and smiled grimly. The aliens were finally beginning to understand what they had walked into. For months, human intelligence services had been tracking every major Dominion fleet movement. When the aliens decided to attack New Terra, they had unknowingly triggered a trap that would cost them much more than one colony. "All human forces, this is Hunter Leader," Min-sik transmitted to the entire human fleet. "The prey is confused and scattered. Continue hunting. Show them what happens when predators try to hunt the ultimate predator." The battle was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Galactic Dominion had made the mistake of challenging a species that had learned to hunt before they learned to build cities. Now they would pay the price for that mistake. "Admiral." Vextar watched his fleet fall apart around him and felt panic rising in his chest for the first time in his long military career. Half of his ships were either destroyed or badly damaged. His communications network was in ruins. The humans were picking apart his forces like surgeons cutting through soft tissue, but the Admiral still had one weapon that had never failed him before: pure terror. He opened a communication channel to broadcast to both his remaining ships and the human forces. "Humans!" Vextar's voice boomed across space. "You have made a terrible mistake by resisting the Dominion. If you do not surrender immediately, I will order my ships to destroy your planet completely. Every man, woman, and child on New Terra will die in nuclear fire. You have 5 minutes to give up, or I will turn your world into ash and dust." This threat had worked on 847 other species. When faced with the complete destruction of their homeworld, every intelligent race in the galaxy had chosen to surrender rather than watch their people die. Vextar was certain the humans would do the same thing, but the human response was not what he expected. Instead of begging for mercy or offering to surrender, something much more frightening happened. The human attacks suddenly became more focused and more deadly. But instead of trying to destroy Dominion ships, the humans began doing something that chilled Admiral Vextar to his bones. They started capturing his vessels intact, with the crews still alive inside. Captain Yoon Da-un commanded the human boarding operations from her assault ship. She was a small woman with cold, dark eyes who had trained for this moment her entire adult life. Around her, 200 human Marines prepared their equipment with the quiet efficiency of professional soldiers. "Listen carefully," Da-un said to her troops. The alien admiral just threatened to murder millions of innocent civilians on New Terra. That makes every single enemy soldier on those ships a war criminal. We are going to capture them alive, and we are going to make them tell us everything. They know about Dominion military operations. The human Marines checked their weapons and armor one final time. They were not carrying the usual heavy military equipment designed to destroy everything in sight. Instead, they had specialized gear designed for capturing enemies and extracting information from them. Remember your training, Daun continued. Move fast, stay quiet, and use fear as your primary weapon. These aliens have never fought an enemy that hunts them back. Show them what real predators are capable of. The first Dominion ship was boarded within minutes. Human Marines cut through the alien hull like it was made of paper and poured into the ship's corridors. The Dominion soldiers inside had never experienced anything like what happened next. The humans moved through the ship like ghosts. They appeared, out of nowhere, struck with surgical precision, and disappeared back into the shadows before the aliens could react. Dominion soldiers found their weapons disabled by precisely placed shots. Their communication systems were jammed. Their lights were cut off, leaving them stumbling around in complete darkness. But the most terrifying part was the psychological warfare. The humans had studied Dominion biology and psychology for months. They knew exactly what sounds, smells, and visual effects would cause maximum fear in alien minds. Strange noises echoed through the ship's corridors, sounds that triggered deep evolutionary fears in the Dominion species. The humans used advanced holographic projectors to create terrifying images that appeared and disappeared without warning. They released chemical compounds into the ship's air system that caused panic and confusion in alien brain chemistry. Within an hour, most of the Dominion crew had surrendered without firing a shot. They huddled together in groups, shaking with fear and begging the humans not to hurt them. "Target their command centers," Daun ordered her Marines as they moved deeper into the captured ship. "We need all their navigation data, fleet deployment, records and communication codes. Strip everything from their computer systems." This scene was repeated on ship after ship throughout the Dominion fleet. The humans were not just winning the battle. They were systematically harvesting intelligence information from every captured vessel. Meanwhile, Commander Lee Jae-sung coordinated the broader strategic picture from his concealed command ship hidden in the outer system. His job was to make sure that every piece of information captured from the Dominion ships was immediately transmitted to human military forces across the galaxy. "Sir, we have complete navigational databases from 12 Dominion vessels," reported his intelligence officer. "We now know the location of every major Dominion military base, supply depot and fleet concentration within 50 light years of here." Jae-sung smiled as he watched the data streaming across his screens. "Excellent. Send all of this information to Earth Command immediately. Make sure our fleets in the other systems get copies as well." The aliens had thought they were attacking one isolated human colony, but the humans were using this engagement to map the entire Dominion military structure. Every captured ship provided more pieces of the puzzle, revealing weaknesses and vulnerabilities that human forces could exploit. Admiral Vex Tar received the worst news of his life when his communications officer approached him with reports from across the galaxy. "Sir, we are receiving emergency transmissions from our reinforcement fleets. The Second Fleet reports that human forces have surrounded them near the Vega system. The Fifth Fleet is trapped at Altair Station. The Seventh Fleet, sir, the Seventh Fleet has been completely destroyed." Vextar stared at the tactical display showing the true scope of what was happening. Human fleets had not just appeared in multiple systems by coincidence. They had been positioned and waiting for months, possibly years, for exactly this moment. Intelligence Officer Quindal approached his admiral with trembling hands. His voice was barely a whisper as he delivered the final piece of terrible news. "Sir, I have analyzed all the intelligence reports. The humans were not defending themselves, they were using us. This entire battle was a trap designed to capture our ships, steal our military secrets, and destroy our fleets across multiple systems simultaneously." Admiral Vextar finally understood the truth. The species he had dismissed as primitive had orchestrated the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. They had been watching, studying, and planning for this war longer than anyone in the Dominion could have imagined. The hunters had become the hunted, and the predators were about to learn what it felt like to be prey. The reports kept flooding, in from across the galaxy, each one worse than the last for the Galactic Dominion. In the Vega system, the Second Fleet had been completely surrounded by human forces that seemed to appear out of nowhere. At Altair Station, the Fifth Fleet was trapped and cut off from all supply lines. The Seventh Fleet had been destroyed so completely that no survivors remained to explain what had happened. Admiral Vextar sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical displays that showed the complete collapse of Dominion military power across 3 entire star systems. This was not just a defeat. This was the systematic destruction of the most powerful military force in galactic history. But the worst part was still coming. A new communications signal began broadcasting on all Dominion frequencies. The voice that spoke was calm, confident, and completely without fear. Attention all Dominion forces. This is General Nam Hyun Woo, Supreme Military Commander of the Human Defense Forces. I have a message for your leaders and your people. On his flagship, Vextar felt his heart stop beating for a moment. The humans had a supreme military commander. That meant they had a unified military structure that spanned multiple worlds. This was not some primitive colony defense force. This was a professional military organization that had been hiding its true strength. General Hyun-woo continued his broadcast from the bridge of his massive command ship, which had been hidden in deep space for months, waiting for this moment. For 20 years we have watched you conquer species after species across this galaxy. We studied your methods, your technology, your tactics, and most importantly, your weaknesses. The general paused, letting his words sink in across the Dominion. Communication networks. You came to our colonies expecting another easy victory over a primitive species. You thought we would beg for mercy like all the others. You were wrong. Admiral Vextar finally understood the horrible truth. The humans had not been surprised by the Dominion attack. They had been expecting it. They had been preparing for it. This entire war had been planned by the humans from the very beginning. Every battle you have fought, Hyun-woo continued, every world you have conquered, every species you have destroyed, we were watching. We learned from your victories and from your enemies' mistakes. We prepared for the day when you would come for us. The general's voice grew colder as he delivered the most chilling news of all. What you think of as our colonies are actually forward military bases. What you think of as our civilian population are actually military personnel and their families. What you think of as our desperate defense is actually the opening phase of our offensive campaign. At that moment, Captain Park Ji-woo's boarding forces breached the hull of Admiral Vextar's flagship. The human marines moved through the ship with the same terrifying efficiency they had shown on every other captured vessel, but this time, they had come for the Admiral himself. Vextar heard the sounds of his crew surrendering without a fight. The psychological warfare tactics the humans used had broken the spirit of even his most elite soldiers. In less than an hour, the most powerful warship in the Dominion fleet had been captured by a force of humans that numbered fewer than 50 soldiers. Captain Park Ji-woo entered the bridge wearing full combat armor, his weapon ready but not pointed. Had anyone? His eyes found Admiral Vextar immediately. Admiral, you are now a prisoner of the human defense forces. You will be treated according to the laws of war, but you will answer for the crimes your forces have committed against innocent civilians. Vextar looked at this human soldier and finally understood the ancient precursor warning that had been sitting in their archives for thousands of years. Do not engage. Immediate retreat recommended. The precursors had known. Somehow they had met humans before and learned what happened when you threatened their people. The warning, Vextar whispered. The precursors tried to warn us. Park Ji-woo nodded grimly. The precursors were smart. They met a human exploration ship about 3,000 years ago. Just one ship on a peaceful mission, but they were intelligent enough to realize what humans would become if we were ever threatened. As Vextar was led away in restraints, General Hyun-woo's broadcast continued across the galaxy. The Dominion expansion ends today. Your military forces are defeated. Your supply lines are cut. Your communication networks are compromised. But we are not like you. We do not conquer for the sake of conquest. The general paused again, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Every world you have conquered will be freed. Every species you have enslaved will be liberated. Every colony you have destroyed will be rebuilt. By their own people, not by us. But then Hyunwoo's voice became hard as steel. However, any attempt to rebuild your military forces or threaten any species in this galaxy will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. We have detailed information on every Dominion world, every military installation, every government building, and every leader. We know where you live and we know how to find you. Across the galaxy, human intelligence networks that had been hidden for decades suddenly activated. Agents who had been living as traders, diplomats, and refugees revealed their true identities. Spy satellites that had been disguised as space debris began transmitting detailed scans of Dominion territory. Communication intercepts that had been collected for years were analyzed and distributed to human military forces. The Dominion leadership realized that humans had not just been preparing for war, they had been preparing for this specific war against this specific enemy for an entire generation. Every human child had been taught about the Dominion threat. Every human world had been fortified. Every human ship had been designed to fight Dominion technology. Admiral Vextar, sitting in his prison cell aboard the human command ship, finally understood what the precursors had known 3,000 years ago. Humans were not just another species. They were the ultimate predators, patient, intelligent, and absolutely ruthless when protecting their own people. The galaxy's apex predators had finally met their match. The hunters had become the hunted. And the humans had been preparing for this moment since the day they first learned that the Dominion existed. The war was over. Humanity had won, and the galaxy would never be the same again.